Welcome to KFC. Can I take your order?
Yeah, can we get 2 pieces of fried dinosaur?
Do you like my tattoo I got? It says, "We love Kara."
You know, Kara's spelt with a C, right? What is it? I've never seen it.
I've made a gravitational wave machine. It's just not working. I don't
Really?
understand why you are not working.
What's it supposed to do? What?
It's meant to bend space-time, so...
But I'm not feeling anything right, and it's not changing anything around me.
How would we know if it was working anyway? Like, I don't know.
Shouldn't we feel as if space-time's stretching?
Does anyone know what happens when you mix panda DNA with human DNA?
Oh no, he's not going to say this joke, is he?
You get banned from the zoo.
Yeah. Boo! Check out this. Some uranium.
Surely that's a little bit dangerous, dude.
No. I saw this article that said that nuclear power is safe.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah, you want some?
Yeah, for sure.
Alright, sweet.
We've had 3-way interviews with Lawrence Krauss, Cara Santa Maria, and even a Catholic priest. Wade, I have a really important question.
Whoa, let me just stop you right there.
How hard this was to research and try and sound genuinely like I was doing work?
Welcome to 2017! Woo! One guy's got the beer in the background.
Alright, well I want to talk today about discrete quantum gravity and studying the problem of quantum measure.
Oh, my favourite.
The bees and the situation bees are in.
What is herpes?
The religious aspects of death as well as mortuary science.
The EM drive.
The EM drive, better known as the impossible drive.
The impossible drive.
Short and long-term climate variability using satellite as well as Earth-based measurements in climate models.
What the science actually says about cannabis.
Where you can really go, what the science?
Please welcome our good friend, Professor Geraint Lewis,
Dr. Chris Ferry.
the lovely Cara Santa Maria,
Professor Brian Nosek.
Robin Ince, Dr. Carl! Ladies and gents, here to make us realise how little we actually know about the universe, it's Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence, welcome to Sci-gasm.
So we have 2 herpes viruses because we can't do what a male dog does. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
we can't
so the
clean ourselves down.
So the unfortunate inaccessibility of our mouths to our genitals meant that
Unfortunate.
meant that the HSV1 and 2 virus
If you
became
could do it-
genetically dissimilar.
Would you swallow?
Oh, what is that? Well, I'll put it this way. Would you give another man a hand job?
No. We're off to a cracking start this episode.
This is going to be great. I'm so looking forward to this. Let me start first by explaining how the cosmic rays are actually detected. Okay, so
Cosmic rays, these are things that are spewed out by huge celestial bodies like suns and black holes and
stars.
what have you.
So people often think that stars are a big ball of fire. Okay, they're not fire; they're actually plasma. All right, and what a plasma is it's particles like subatomic particles moving around. So like it's where electrons aren't joined to the atom, and they make kind of this beautiful kind of bright, glowing, emitting stuff everywhere, okay? And our sun emits the electromagnetic spectrum from start to finish. Okay, it also emits subatomic particles, like beta and alpha particles, beta being electrons, alpha being a helium nucleus. And as they're sprawled out, they interact with the Earth's atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you get things like the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis, Aurora Australis, if you're in the southern side of the globe.
Yeah, and with that, there's these things called black spots, okay? And black spots are an area where...
On the sun, the black spots,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you're
Okay,
about.
so there's little black spots on the sun, and they're an area of intense magnetic strength.
Don't recommend our listeners go and look at the sun to find black spots. You need a real good telescope to be able to do that, by the way.
Well, we're actually at a point where you probably won't see it anyway because there's not a lot going on in the sun at the moment.
The solar minimum.
Yeah, so maybe in a few years go out.
Yeah, but still, use a proper telescope, or else you will blind yourself. Not a joke.
No, just have the right filter on the telescope. Don't use a telescope. That will make it worse. So as these particles come, they hit the Earth's atmosphere. That's the aurora borealis and the aurora australis. They're either end of the Earth. Okay, one's at the northern, which is the aurora borealis, and the one down the bottom is the aurora australis. Represent. And what they do is they actually produce these lights, and that's the northern lights and what would be the southern lights. So when they do that, you can see the interaction, striking gases and things like that. Now, that happens, they're at their peak when we have a solar maximum. Now, in 1967, there was solar flares being emitted that were really unlike anything we'd actually recorded.
So they were big.
They were
big
huge.
solar storm.
They were huge. And the more black spots there are on the sun, the more that these things are getting emitted. Okay? Now, we knew about that in 1967, and because we were monitoring it, we were able to go, okay, well, there's going to be extra solar activity, and this is what, this is what the U.S. Air Weather Service notified the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD.
They just said, basically, heads up, the sun's freaking out right now.
Yeah, on May 23rd, they said, all right, well, here's a significant worldwide geomagnetic storm, and it'll hit within 36 to 48 hours, because we can observe these particles. They then take time to come and obviously then hit.
So they're not travelling as fast as the speed of light then? Okay.
So they can say, okay, it's pointing this direction, it's probably going to hit here. Now, however, okay, the problem was that we actually, when they were recording the radio waves or detecting these potential missiles, they would send out signals of about 440 megahertz, which is a radio wave.
So they're just trying to pick up any ballistic missiles heading their way. Okay.
And it bounced back. Well, then they'd be able to detect it. Now the problem was, as these particles were coming in, they were emitting, the radio waves were actually being emitted at 440 megahertz.
Okay,
so it wasn't that they were picking up these fake dots everywhere. It was the fear that it was actually they were trying to jam the Soviets were trying to jam the US's signal.
They couldn't tell that there was a launch happening.
Yeah, so that way they couldn't tell that.
So we had these. Yeah. So you say we had the US had these special instruments that were designed to detect ballistic missiles floating overhead. All of a sudden, these instruments started to get jammed up. They weren't working anymore, and the US went, "Holy shit! Russia's trying to jam our signal. They're clearly going to fire a nuke at us before long." That's
exactly right. So the Air Force commanders actually.
And it was just the sun.
It was just the sun.
So if you and I shared a water bottle, would I get your herpes?
Yes. Very likely, yes, because if you have a look at the way in which, like you take a swab of your mouth, you get cells in your, cheek cells and things like that in your mouth. And what happens then is obviously they're removed from your mouth onto the drink bottle, therefore, hence why you can get cold sores from like macking on to some bird in a nightclub. Or man, whatever you're into, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Could I get herpes from a chimpanzee? Don't answer that.
You mean, did you?
So how do you deal with the variety of different bodies? So you're going to have people dying at different ages, people obviously different sizes, fat people, skinny people, people at different decomposition rates. You must be pretty alright at chemistry, Caleb.
So when I picture an Australian body, I immediately go to like Chris Hemmingsworth, like a perfectly sculpted. Do you guys have fat people in Australia?
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. I think we all have bodies like Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah. Well, we are we're I think we're like one of the fattest nations on earth.
Okay,
I think we're with you guys. Yeah.
All
those chicken wings.
Yeah, all the chicken wings and pizza. It is a real problem.
We're in heaven.
Yeah, right. It's a real problem here in the U.S. There's literally crematories that are made just for that type of person, because if you were to take that type of person and put them in a regular crematory, it would melt the fat, would be one option, or it would start a huge, what is essentially a grease fire.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, and those are the two like real things that happen if you don't have the right crematory. So there's that, and there's different stages of decomposition, like you said. Like if somebody dies in their home and they're a loner. They don't have any friends. The only way that it'll be known that this person has died is probably the stench. So that's a problem. And when we have that, there's no way that we can embalm a body. I mean, once a body starts to decompose, it's pretty much impossible to perform any of our embalming techniques. Of course, when you do that, you're injecting a lot of chemicals, a lot of really strong chemicals into a body. And then when you bury that body, it can maintain its basic shape for decades, even 100 years or more. So there's been, reports like right now, probably if you pulled up Abraham Lincoln's body, Abraham Lincoln was embalmed like 3 or 4 times because he was paraded around the whole United States on a train. They had like this funeral train where they paraded his body city to city, and hundreds of thousands of people viewed his body, but they embalmed him time and time again to keep him looking fresh. I mean, I bet you could dig him up right now and he would look a little bit like a skinny Daniel Day-Lewis. He would he'd probably still look good. So you have literally millions of people in the ground who, if
maybe they should do an Abe Lincoln revival tour, send him around again.
The revival tour. The second
with all the original members.
Don't tell me that's not going to sell tickets.
No, dude, I'd pay a lot of money to see that.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Over the next few years, I predict we'll see a lot more studies into long-term, large population marijuana use.
Is one of the problems as well. Now, I've been to Amsterdam.
Okay.
I've also been
How
through
was
the year. I don't remember. I think it was good. No, it was. There was a lot of stuff. Now, one thing I found traveling through the US and in the Netherlands is not all marijuana is created equal. Is that one of the problems with addressing this as a medicinal?
Absolutely, and as well, like tobacco, they're bred the stronger the better. So, and different strengths and different quantities, and it really that helps us understand if especially we're trying to do controlled studies about the way that these things interact, and it's just like any kind of medical study as well. Is the population, you need a large population and you need to have as many controls in place as you can to accurately measure what's actually happening in the body and how these people are responding to it.
Okay.
So even with this, there's a number of biases that we look at, and I found it really interesting looking into this study. So, yeah. But
this is all secondhand research though, right?
This is all secondhand research. Cannabis research is hard. It's classed as a Schedule 1 drug under the Controlled Substances Act in the US. Now that means that the way that they view it is there's currently no accepted medical use, and there's a high potential for abuse. It sounds like a Cypress Hill song. Seriously.
Say that again. Yeah, it does.
No currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse.
That is, yeah. Somebody is messing with someone in the. What is this? The CDC or something?
It would be the FDA.
FDA. Someone in the FDA is messing with us there.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the reasons that they're having trouble with actually understanding the effect of cannabis is that when you're designing studies, the people who are most likely to volunteer, who do you reckon are most likely to volunteer?
I think I know exactly who's going to volunteer.
Yeah, stoners.
Yeah, right.
So,
wait, I get paid to do what? Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Can we get to listen to some Zeppelin?
Yeah. You're in the control group. You can't smoke for a month.
I quit. So, once again, it's really hard because these people will have more of a tolerance to marijuana if they're continually taking it. So it's really hard. It's like, do you smoke marijuana often? Yes. Well, obviously, because you're not going to say, hey, you've never done methamphetamines before? Well, let's sign you up for a meth trial. Like, people aren't going to want to do it who don't usually do it.
Yeah. That's true.
If you say to a stoner you can get free weed, they're going to be like, yes!
You can get paid for smoking weed. You just have to fill in a questionnaire every couple of days.
Exactly. And here's your batch. But
There's probably some very good weed that come out of these science labs as well, because they wouldn't...
Oh, yeah, they would know all the ins and outs.
See, look, how much more cool are names in biology than physics?
Look, yeah.
Neonicotinoids.
Yeah.
Imidacloprid. That sounds cool.
We do have Trappist.
Oh, dear. That's just creepy, yeah.
Now, with climate models, there's been a lot of climate models have been questioned. So how accurate or reliable are these climate models, and what are some of the things that they've predicted that have been wrong or right?
So, again, it's probably good to get a bigger picture of what we mean when we talk about models. There are many different types of models that we would use in this sort of research. Some of them are very simple, so they only have a few processes happening in them, and some of them are very complex.
So you're all just not ripping off NASA, and that's not the only one, right?
There are many different models. No single model is perfect, right? And at the end of the day, when you think about it, you don't want a model that completely emulates the Earth, because then it would be too ridiculously complex to be able to figure out. But there are lots of different models. There are very simple models, as I said, and the complex models could be just an atmospheric general circulation model. General circulation means, basically how things are moving around in it. You can have an ocean model. You could couple those together, so you'd have a coupled ocean atmosphere general circulation model. And then there are people who do much more complex things than that, where they would add on, chemistry, biology, all sorts of stuff, and even sort of, sea ice models and things like that, so looking at just the cryosphere. So people could look at really small processes in their own area of research, or they can try to bring it all together, and that makes things a lot more complex. So basically, what a model is a mathematical representation of some system, right? So when we're talking about climate, it's going to be either the atmosphere or the oceans or all that other stuff I was talking about combined together. You're going to have some initial conditions or some, basic idea of what the world looks like at some point. What it would, it's warmer at the tropics, for instance, and it's cold at the poles. It's a very simple example of, some sort of conditions that you would start your model with. And then you might have some forcing in it. So, the sunlight comes in and makes everything move around with the energy, etc. And you have governing equations that determine how things change. So that's things like your equations of motion, mass, conservation of mass, momentum, all those sorts of things. And then you get some output. And the output that we would generally look at is things like temperature, pressure, stuff like that. Now, complex models, the resolution of the model makes a big difference to what you can say about it. And models have come a long way. We used to have very, very coarse resolution models, but even now general circulation models are about one degree, right? So that's still about 100 kilometers, you're talking about.
Now here, you'll like this one.
Alrighty.
All right, there was another from Nature Communications in 2016 as well, so another model one. This one was really good because it looked at wild bee populations, so not the honeybees, not the ones, just wild bee populations over an 18-year period. And they used the population studies of these bees over an 18-year period and compared it with rapeseed oil.
What are you insinuating?
Which is canola. Okay. And it's used for vegetable oil.
Oh, you like this one? It's called rapeseed.
I never said that you'd like the rapeseed part. I think you're jumping to a conclusion there.
What you did? I'm going to listen back to this, and I know that you said something that is just fucking awful.
I either thought you'd like the study because it was over 18 years. Now, the interesting thing about...
What about some of these hurdles for young scientists or people trying to publish quality science that has trouble getting out there for one reason or another?
Well, peer review is a painful process, but it hasn't changed over the years. It's still, the good stuff eventually makes it through. I think that my advice to young scientists is always, the only advice I ever give is don't let the bastards get you down, and it's my general view in life. And so you just keep plugging away. And if you do good work, it eventually makes it through. That's the great thing. As I say, scientists are human. But the science process overcomes those things. And eventually, the good science makes it through. And that's what's so wonderful about science as a process. That's why we should be teaching the process of science and not just a bunch of facts.
And how does your understanding of science influence your belief in God?
Yeah, for me, as I was when I am asked this kind of question, I used to say that
asked it a lot, though, right?
A lot, yeah. In fact, I've been asked a lot. Usually, when I've been asked this kind of question, I used to say that for me, as a Catholic priest and religious belonging to the Jesuit order, I don't find any contradiction between the idea of the existence of God and the fact that God is the creator of the universe, because if I believe in God, I can understand that this universe, and I believe that this universe is the product of God's creation. And the fact that I found this harmony and this symmetry in the universe is, for me, in such a way, an indirect proof of the fact that this harmony and beauty has been created by a God that is the source of love and beauty.
There's a bigger discussion out there with regard to this fine-tuning, and there are two camps. There is the scientific camp, that it's a scientific problem, and there is the religious camp, that use the existence of fine-tuning as evidence that the universe was tuned for us to be here. And so, if you have that particular viewpoint, there is a tuner, and that tuner is a god to some people, right? So that's what they say. The universe was set up such that we can exist. So, religion is one of those tricky topics to discuss, especially when, like me, I'm a card-carrying atheist, and so for me, I don't see what drives the need to have a being being the tuner, rather than again relying on the laws of physics, the laws of science. They're laws that we haven't uncovered yet. But to me, if we keep going, we should find them one day, hopefully, fingers crossed. Now, one of the reasons that we wrote the book, however, is that the two camps do not talk to each other, right? The science camp over here does not talk to the religious camp over there, and both claim that they have the solution. And one of the things we wanted to get through in the book is that nobody at the moment really has the answer. Nobody can say that this is definitely the answer to the fine-tuning problem. Science doesn't have it, and of course, for me, the religious aspect is not really satisfactory. I still think there's a scientific solution behind all of that. So yeah, we wanted to at least start the discussion, right? That it is a scientific problem, but other people have different viewpoints with regards to what the solution could be.
Are you saying that once again it's not black and white but grey?
It's so grey right now. Oh my gosh. It's like London in winter. Okay, the next
and
thing...
summer.
And summer. It's like London.
And spring and autumn.
It's like London 363 days of the year. You know what a frontal lobotomy is?
Sounds like something you'd see on 50 Shades of Grey.
It does a bit, but...
A frontal lobotomy. Sounds like some weird position.
Not a position.
Involving...
It's a procedure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say. Involving a clown and a fire-blowing, vertically challenged person.
Okay. The frontal lobotomy.
I believe...
How to make light of a serious situation.
All right. I believe...
Would you like to try and save yourself here, or would you like me to go into what a frontal lobotomy is?
No. I know what a frontal lobotomy is. It's when the clown picks up... A frontal lobotomy, isn't it where they stick, like they actually move something around in your brain, like using like a long rod, and they move your, like they stimulate or poke parts of your brain?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. It was a medical procedure which was really common in the 1940s and 1950s, so it's not that long ago, really. It's been around for a while, but it really got into the medical mainstream in the 1940s and 1950s.
Okay.
It was introduced by this Egas Moniz. He got a Nobel Prize for it as well, which is one of the more controversial Nobel Prizes that have been handed out.
Yeah, I was about to say, because that would have, seriously, excuse my language here, I know we don't usually swear on this podcast. That would have, seriously fucked some people up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably with some recent elections around the world, it's probably a long while till we start tapping the brakes. I like that.
He's talking about Trump.
So with all that, though, we got sent a question from a follower, and they said, with the current rate of warming, just say we keep going, how long do we really have as humans as a species before we really start to get worried?
Fuck, I don't know. What a question. I'm sorry. I can't.
There you go, listeners. You're really missing the point there.
Listen, I would say, humans are very resilient. The human race will survive, right? I don't think the issue is that the human race won't survive. It's just how decent or shitty a life we want to be living.
You don't have to be a musician to enjoy Eric Clapton, right? You don't have to be a painter to enjoy Picasso or a writer to enjoy Shakespeare. You don't have to be a scientist to enjoy science. And you don't know all the details. And if you're a musician, you might like Bach better because you understand all the different voices in the different preludes and other things. But even if you're not, you can enjoy it. And you enjoy more the more you know, sure. But you don't have to know, you don't have to be a working scientist to appreciate the ideas of science. And that's one of the reasons why I write books.